All right, it is 7 o'clock. Hopefully, people in attendance can hear me right now. There are a few people within the district that are logging in, so if you wouldn't mind emailing Jenny Bulkey just to confirm that you could hear me at this time. So, my name is John Gross, Superintendent, School District of Spring Valley. I welcome you here tonight to our third and final community meeting for the referendums coming up on April 4th. We've got some good information to share for you tonight. There's also a good chance for you to ask questions, and I'll get into that in just a second. But again, thanks for taking the time to join us tonight. We will be recording this meeting and putting it on our website so you can watch it later if you want to go back and hear something again. So, April 4th is a referendum. We're hoping that as many people that could possibly votes so that we get a good understanding and feedback where the community is at and what they want moving forward. So throughout the presentation tonight, if you have questions, we're not using the chat feature of Google Meet. We're actually going to use email. And so Jenny Bulkey, who I'll introduce here in just a second, she is collecting all of the emails that come through on this email address. So info@springvalley.k12.wi.us. And so if you email that address, she will collect those and I will answer those questions at the end of the presentation. We also have some experts we'll introduce here in a minute that have been helping us prepare to be part of our team, and they may join in to answer some questions. Also, anytime tonight or right up till the referendum, if you want more information, you can go ahead and look at our webpage, and it's pretty easy to navigate, and I'll get into that in a little bit as well. So, to start off with, we have a lot of people on the team that helped us get to this point of sharing this information with the community, starting with our school board. There are a couple members of the board that were outgoing last year. They aren't showing here. That's Guy Leach and Brian Wang. But this is our current board. And you can see from left to right, we have Monica Borlacek, Dan Stashik, April Robelia, Janelle Wolf, Sandy Jacobs, Matthew Schreiber, and Bobby Yeager. And they are the group that approved the resolution back in January to go to referendum. Also, some critical team members. We have lots of them, but some really critical team members. One is Jenny Bulkey. She's our technology media specialist. She is also our communications expert here on staff. So she's helping with the meeting tonight. She helps with print communications. She is the one responsible for putting together these newsletters that you see sent out every quarter or so. Also, we have two district accountants, Tina Bauer right here and Sandy Langer-Wood. Sandy, it's actually her last week of work. She's retiring on Friday. So if you see Sandy, give her a big congratulations. And Tina's taking over for Sandy. They've both been a critical part of the team to help us get ready, especially in the financial end of these referendum questions. There are many other people, including all of our staff, who do a great job every day. And hopefully you find a lot of great value in having those people work with your children. So that's part of the team. Also tonight, and I believe both of these people are on the meeting as well, we have two experts from Baird Financial Consultants. Baird works with many, many school districts across the state of Wisconsin, and both Lisa Voisin and Debbie Burnett have been longtime partners of the school district. Lisa in particular helped on the referendum for the 2019 elementary school construction project, and Debbie's been a partner of the district for a long time and helped us with this project. And what they basically get into the nuts and bolts of school finance, give us our best options, and hopefully get us the best deal on interest rates and other things if referendums would happen. We have two other members of the team, Scott Grolski and Lindsay Beeman. Scott's the president of Point of Beginning. It's an architecture and design firm. And Lindsay is a project and marketing coordinator. And Lindsay, along with Jenny Bulkey, really worked hard to put together the information we provided. And Lindsay helped turn it into this. And a lot of you have seen these flyers and also the postcards in the mail. And again, the information is from us, but putting it in a way that's easy to digest and to read, that's thanks with a lot of thanks to Lindsay and the team at Point of Beginning for that. They also helped with the design of the element or the referendum question number 2 for the athletic facility project. So more to come on that. So they're in attendance in the meeting. At the end of the meeting, if needed, they can join in and help answer some questions through email back to us. All right, to start off with, I'm going to go through some background information about referendums across the state of Wisconsin and Spring Valley's referendum history. Then we'll get into the flyer and question 1, question 2, and the background information related to both. So this is Spring Valley referendum history. I've got this slide from Debbie Burnett, again from Baird. And this shows recent Spring Valley history over the last 20 years with referendums. Going back here, that you can see in the tan area, these 2 referendums passed. This was on April 2nd, 2019. That was to build this school that I'm standing in. I'm in a kindergarten classroom right now, Mrs. Hartung's kindergarten room. And so that passed. That was, I think, 57.8% passage rate. And a few years prior to that, in April of 2016, this referendum passed, I think, at around 61.5% of the voters approved a 4-year, $800,000 a year non-recurring referendum. And then you have to go quite a ways back. You have to go all the way back to 2002, and there were 3 questions asked that year. All 3 failed. I was not in the Spring Valley District at that time. Some of you were. Some of you may know a little more history behind it. But there was a question on building a athletic facilities project. There was also looking at, I believe, constructing an elementary school and a recurring referendum, which we do not have on the ballot this time. But that would be for operating funds. So that's the history in the last 20 years of referendums in Spring Valley. Again, this is also from Debbie Burnett from Baird. This slide shows referendums in the area. And this is over the last, well, it's about 12, 13 years now, since 2010. And so the darker blue, these are, by the way, school district maps. So this is the corner of Wisconsin, the chin of Wisconsin. You kind of see the nose. That's how I look at Wisconsin anyway. So this is the area. Eau Claire is right around here. Here's Spring Valley. Next to us, here's Ellsworth, here's Elmwood, and so on. So Spring Valley District, the lighter blue means a referendum was attempted. And the darker blue, the more referendums were attempted. If an area is white, again, we're just looking at this part of the state, so some of these districts had referendums. But in our corner of the state, you can see most districts went to referendum in the last 10, 12 years. And again, the darker blue, the more referendums they've gone to. This is Prescott, for instance. It's quite a dark blue. So they've gone to many referendums for operating funds, and also they built a high school about 7, 8 years ago for lots of reasons. Ellsworth too, darker blue. Spring Valley, you can see is this color. Elmwood's interesting. They're white right here. Elmwood has not gone to referendum the last 10 years, but they did what's called a recurring referendum back in, I think, 2006, 2007, and 2008. Recurring means a referendum, once it's passed, that taxation goes on in perpetuity or forever. So they've been, the districts have been benefiting from those passages, those referendums, and they haven't needed to go back since then. So in a nutshell, referendums are pretty common in our part of the state and across the state as a whole. All right, this slide here gives you an idea of what referendums have looked like in the last fall. So these are actually screenshots of documents, and each one of these lines represents a different referendum across the state. These are from November of 2022, so just about 5-6 months ago. And these are the referendums that are here on the April ballot. So I'm going to click in this document. You'll get to see these up a little bit closer. There we go. Okay. So these are referendums from last fall. Hopefully you can see this on the screen. If not, I'm not going to read every line of this. But 81 school referendums were on the ballot across the state of Wisconsin. There are 421 districts. So 81 is, about a third of the districts. There weren't 81 school districts that went to referendum, but many districts. Some districts had 2 referendums like we have on the ballot. You can see the passage rate. 79% of all referendums that were proposed across the state passed. And I'll just kind of scroll through here. If I see a district in the area, I might stop and shout it out here, I guess. Here's a Clayton school district north of us. They passed a referendum. And if you can see over on the right, it's passed or not passed. There's an NR for non-recurring, which means a referendum for operating funds, which ends after a certain period of time. RR means recurring, goes on forever. And then debt issue is for building a facility or upgrading a facility. So again, these are all last fall across the state of Wisconsin. You can see many say passed. There are some failed in here, but not a lot of them. There's Prairie Farm. They passed a non-recurring referendum. Somerset, they failed 2 referendums, both for debt, both for making improvements on the facilities. I think they failed those 49 to 51%, so it was pretty close. And we're almost, there we go. We got to the end of the fall of 2022. Here's April 4th. These are all referendums on the ballot here coming up next Tuesday across the state of Wisconsin. And so there are 81 in the fall. There are 82 again already this year in the spring. And you can say 10 of them are to exceed the revenue cap on a recurring basis. Those are referendums that will last forever if approved. 29 are to build something or to improve facilities like the one we have. And then the other one like we have is a non-recurring referendum or a referendum that will end after a certain period of time. There are 43 of those across the state. So some districts in the area: Altoona, Arcadia. I'm going down the list. I'm skipping maybe Blair Taylor, Cadott, Cameron, Hudson. Hudson has 2 referendums. La Crosse. Again, just kind of area districts or districts that are somewhat close to us. And we're getting into the R's, S's. Somerset is going back to referendum. Here's Spring Valley's 2 questions. So we have a non-recurring referendum. This is for 3 years, $500,000 a year. And we also have a debt issue or a facilities referendum as well. That's question number 2 on our ballot. So nearing the end of those 82 referendums for this April. And then I'll end on this slide here. This was in a newspaper article from February. You may have seen that in the Sun Argus. This graph shows the difference between funding and inflation and where the costs are. And so the green and blue basically is where the state has funded schools starting back 2008 and 9. You can see the green and blue lines together haven't gone up much. And if you want to keep up with inflation, you would keep up with the red line. So the gap or the red bar shows the difference between how we've been funded and inflation. So this tells part of the story why so many districts are going to referendum across the state. It's a very common way and it's the accepted way for schools to fund their operations and take care of their facilities. All right, I'm going to pause here for a second and just remind you, if you have any questions, please go to info@springvalley.k12.wi.us and you can send your questions in and we can answer those best we can. All right. You most likely, if you live in the school district, have seen this mailed out to you or seen it at an event that you may have attended. And this is directly from the flyer. Again, this information is from the school district, but with a lot of help from Lindsay and Jenny. We put this together in a way that hopefully makes a lot of sense to you. And I've gone to a lot of community meetings. I've gone to township meetings and village meetings and explained this. And I'll do it the same way tonight. The back cover and the front cover really tell the story about why we're here tonight and why we're going to referendum next week. The back cover, it talks about the district strategic plan. And this was formed back in 2021. So a year and a half ago. There were community meetings, there were staff meetings and student meetings to assess and figure out what are the things our district needs to do moving forward into the future. This was a school board initiative. A company was hired called Big River Group to come and help facilitate it. They're the ones that collected all the survey results and things like that. And they helped facilitate, finally, the board hearing all the summary of all the results. And these 6 goals came out of those meetings. These are the themes that were heard over and over and over again between all of the different groups that had a chance to submit feedback. And so in no particular order, goal 1 is fiscal planning for athletic and co-curricular facilities. It was heard a lot from a lot of different people. The second goal is to make sure employees' salary and benefits are in the top 50% compared to area school districts. The third one is to develop a family consumer science program. We have not had one of those programs since 2008 or 9 due to budget cuts back then. So adding that program back in is a priority from the community, staff, and students. Clearly communicating with students and families the different options students have for career and college readiness. There's lots of opportunities now for students that go beyond the walls of our school district, and the community said, tell us more about those. We want those advertised to us. So that was a strategic goal. Goal number 5 is look at the opportunity or providing more opportunities for clubs and different sports and things like that for students. And finally, goal 6 is making sure our staff get the professional development. Remember, fall of 2021, we're still kind of in the middle of COVID. People didn't have a chance to get out and do trainings and different things of that nature. So that was a goal, I think, the reason why that goal really became prominent. So that's part of the reason we're here. Fast forward 1 year later to last October, and the community survey was given. This survey really asked the community, how supportive are you of schools? What are the school strengths? What are the school's areas that they need to improve upon? And also, how interested would you be in supporting construction of an athletic co-curricular facility? And in the next couple of slides, you'll see some of the history of how we got to that point. But at the end of the day, the strengths that the community noted, and we had 422 responses, which is out of about 2,400 responses sent out. The company that designed this survey said that's a pretty normal response rate for a community our size. And their accuracy rate, about 95% of the time they're accurate when they get responses. So we're really taking this feedback to heart. The community said keeping up-to-date classrooms and supporting student learning is something we do really well here at Spring Valley. Keeping a safe school and campus is something we do well. Making sure the community supports us. The community is saying you do a good job, school district, of engaging with the community. And then employing high-quality teachers. So our community recognizes that our teachers and our staff are very good at what they do. Areas that we need to improve upon is preparing students for local jobs like in agriculture and the trades. We have room to grow according to our community. And then offering more partnerships between the village and the school district and giving kids opportunities. So those are the things that were shared as strengths and areas of improvement. Also, talking specifically about what ended up being question 2 in the referendum, the construction of an athletic facility. 58.3% of the people that took the survey 58.3% of likely voters who took the survey said they would support the construction of phase 1, a track, football, and co-curricular facility. And that's what you see on the ballot next week. There were 2 other phases with other projects. Less than half the community said they'd support it, so they were not put on the referendum. We were doing our best to listen to what the community wants. So that is the back cover, and there's a little bit more information now on how we got to this point. So this is actually an image from a big, large Post-it note. If you can see the date, it might be kind of hard to read, but it's October 15th, 2021. This is Spring Valley High School students' vision, and here are the different things that came up that day during that meeting with those high school students. And so respectful staff and students, trusting relationships, these are the strengths they saw. Turf and track athletic facility, offer more college courses. So that's part of the feedback that went into our strategic plan that the board adopted. And then here you see the final project results. This is a kind of a progress report done by the Big River Group of the community survey and the staff survey and the student survey to help with the strategic plan. And here are those 6 goals that you see in the flyer. And that was, again, October 2021. Moving forward, again, some more information from October 2021. And this is a year later. This is the community survey, which is on the front cover of this flyer. And you can see the breakdown of results. So right here, the top bar shows over 50%. This red line is 50% support. And you can see the different options. The non-parents, non-staff, those are people very likely to vote and people that don't have a strong connection to the school, or a direct connection, I should say. With their input and also the staff, students, and parents, school perceptions, the company hired to do the survey, said that would reach over 51%. This represents 58.3% of the likely voters would support question number 1. All this information can be found on the website, and I'll show you where to find that in just a little bit. All right, so the strategic plan, the 6 goals. We have done our best to keep the community informed of those 6 goals. Here's some newspaper articles. This was back in June of 2022, right after the strategic plan for facility goals was adopted. And then you have an article from January of this year. This one is from February of this year. I'm also going to highlight some newsletters The community said in the community survey they really like getting newsletters in print. That's one of the primary ways they get their information. Here are two of the newsletters. This is from summer of last year. In the back cover, we're doing our best to keep the strategic plan on the back cover so people can see it. So this was from June of last year. This one here is from this winter. And on the back cover is another strategic planning update. So that's a pattern you'll see. There's going to be a new newsletter coming out. You should see that in your mailboxes by the end of this week. That's our target to get those out to you. And that's our spring newsletter. There'll be some information on the referendum, but also just highlights about what's happening in school. All right, if you have any questions, and again, this slide will keep coming up. Here's where you can email those to. Jenny Boke's checking those right now, and she'll collect those questions, and we'll answer those at the end of the presentation. You can always go to our school website to find out more information about the referendum or any other thing you're interested in with the school district. Okay, getting to the inside cover of the flyer. Here are the two questions on the referendum. And again, same thing you've seen hopefully at your home. Maybe you have a copy right now with you. Question number one, operating funds. This question is to exceed our operating referendum our levy by $500,000 a year for 3 years. This money is going to be used for a couple reasons or a couple purposes. One is to recruit and retain staff. Right now, filling teaching and support staff positions is very difficult. In fact, this year we've been fully staffed 3 days. We've been very close almost the entire year, but we haven't been fully staffed with the exception of 3 days this school year. So recruiting and retaining staff takes funds and takes money. And so some of this money would be used for that purpose. The next box you see here is maintaining growing learning opportunities for students. We've already expanded opportunities for students in the areas of ag, tech, art. We're looking at expanding opportunities for students at the elementary school as well. That takes funding to a degree, and so we want to keep that progress going. Another area we really want to hit hard is making sure students have those post-secondary opportunities. So partnering students being able to take courses at Chippewa Valley Technical College and other area institutions while also being students here at our school. That helps families, helps students as well. Third thing is we want to maintain strong financial standing. We're anticipating a deficit budget this year of about $300,000. Last year we had a $400,000 surplus. And on the next slide or two, I'll show you some information about why that changed. In the past, though, strong financial planning has been a good thing for the district. We're in a good standing now. We're planning on spending down some of our fund balance, or similar to a savings account. You can't do that in perpetuity. So my plan, my recommendation to the school board wasn't just to keep doing that. It also wasn't to make drastic cuts until our community had a chance to examine that and see if that's something they wanted us to do. So this referendum will help us know where the community is at as well. Really important information here. The school district of Spring Valley ranks 394th out of 421 districts for revenue limit. Revenue limit is what the state of Wisconsin says is the minimum that you can charge or levy or collect taxes on to operate your schools. So of all the districts in the state, we are right near the bottom for the amount of money we can levy. So in a couple ways, you can look at it in a couple different ways. One, for an operating business like it's part of my job, that makes it a little more challenging, especially with high inflation and other factors right now. From the taxpayer's point of view, if we are one of the lowest revenue ceiling districts, local taxpayers are paying a smaller amount of money compared to other districts that have a higher revenue limit. So again, it's all your perspective and where things are at. But when we are ranking, we're just over the $10,000 limit minimum. The state average is $11,500 plus. So we're about $1,500 below the average school district in the state. And that's year over year. So you can only do that so long. If your revenues don't increase, and that gets right down here to this bullet, revenues have not increased. 6 out of the last 8 years, they've gone up $0 in per pupil aid. And per pupil or per student aid is the primary way we are funded. And so if 6 out of the last 8 years, you're not getting an increase in that area, that makes it very challenging. The state of Wisconsin did pass through some federal funds. They're called ESSER funds for our district to use. The problem with those funds is once they're used, they're gone. So you can't use those for ongoing expenses. So we've used them for things such as buying curriculum in technology due to COVID-related reasons. Finally, and this is something a lot of you can relate with, I know all of you can, our costs are going up. Our costs for diesel fuel, electricity, supplies, and also employee salary and benefits. Our healthcare costs are going up by a 40-year high inflation. So if your revenues aren't increasing and your costs are going up substantially, and to begin with, you aren't getting a lot of revenue compared to many other districts in the state of Wisconsin, our lines are crossing, basically our revenues and expenditures, and we need to do something about it. So we're coming to the voters on April 4th to ask, what would you like to do? How would you like us to handle that? This referendum, the tax impact, as you can see, is $40 for every $100,000 of property value. So if you have a $200,000 property, the tax impact for this would be $80. If you have 100,000, it would be obviously 40. And there's a breakdown per month, $3.33 a month per every $100,000. That's an estimate. Again, this is where Baird Financial Team really shines. They are experts at predicting these things best that they can, using the factors that they know. So, transferring over to this question number 2, and I'm going to get into this in the next few slides as well. This is for the construction of an outdoor athletic co-curricular facility and football field complex. This will be on the campus. This map shows County Double C. Team Oil is right down about here. Travel up County Double C, and this is right on our campus. This will be an artificial turf facility. The group that studied this last year determined that this would be the best type of facility if we want kids to get out and use it a lot. So Point of Beginning, which I introduced earlier, Scott and Lindsay from Point of Beginning, helped us develop this plan with a lot of input from a facility study committee, which I'll show you here in a few minutes. Artificial turf is if you want kids to get out and use it for everything from graduation to Phi Ed to recess to baseball practice when it's snowy and icky out, softball practice, football games, all those kinds of things. This is the kind of facility. Point of Beginning has done studies where you go from 60, 70 events in 1 year from grass. The very next year you have turf. You're into the 600, 700, 800 events. Same area, same school district. So the committee that studied this and recommended this plan to the board felt that that was a great investment for our community. There's also an 8-lane competition track, 1,000-seat spectator bleachers, which would allow this facility to be large enough to host playoff games and things of that nature. There's also a walking lane around the outside of this track. There's a concession stand here, and then you've got your shot put, your discus, your high jump, and long jump and things of that nature right here on this campus. So why bring this forward now? It's a strategic plan. The community said, please study it. Students, staff, and community all said in October 2021, this is an area we want to see some plans about, and this is it. This was also assessed in the community survey in October 2022, and 58.3% of the voters said we'd support it at $7.1 million. So that's why we're bringing it forward. The community asked for it. We've studied it, brought it forward a plan. The community said they would support it. The other big reason, that's kind of the last bullet on here, is timing. Now, you could look at timing a couple different ways. You could say the economy may be uncertain. There may be other factors. Inflation's high. But also inflation will be high for this project. In a year, this project could cost $7.1 million, could be in excess of $8 million, $8.8 million to $8.3 million, depending on where the final inflation number comes in for construction inflation this year. So if passed this year, the project would be $7.1 million, hopefully a little less by the time it's all said and done, but that's the plan that we're bringing forward. There's some other features here as well. All right, going back to question 1, some information on enrollment. You can see over here, our enrollment was 767 students 4 years ago. It dropped to 709 students. It went up to 746 last year, and we're at 750 this year. From last year to this year, we saw some aid reductions. So this is money we did not have this year that we had last year. This kind of tells the story of how we went from a surplus last year to a deficit this year. Sparsity aid. This aid is given to districts that have a large geographic area and a smaller population like Spring Valley. as long as you have 745 students or below, you get about $274,000. We had 746 students last year. So because we were one student over the limit, we saw an aid reduction. Our $274,000 dropped to $74,000. That's a net loss of $200,000 in revenue. High cost transportation aid was reduced. We did not realize that money this year. And that is money you get back for purchasing buses and other things. The state gives you a portion of that percentage back. We did not purchase any buses last year. The 2020 national census reallocated the population percentages for all states. Wisconsin has a smaller population compared to other states now, and therefore Title I aid, which goes to help support reading and math, especially at high need schools, reduced by $50,000. The governor also gave one-time money out last year to help respond to COVID. We didn't get all that money this year, so that's a $33,000 reduction. And then costs have gone up. Our healthcare costs, we've had 2 of the last 3 years have been our highest healthcare usage years by our employees. Luckily this year, where things are trending in a good direction because we ultimately want our staff to be healthy. But that was an increased expense. We've had to hire additional paraprofessionals and custodial staff to meet the needs of the students. And then I didn't put a dollar amount to these last couple, but they are huge factors. That is inflation. Inflation for salaries and benefits, and inflation for everything we buy. So if you take a look at these totals, you're about $650,000 either lost revenue or added expenses before you even get down to here. And so you go from $400,000 to the good, and now we're anticipating a $300,000 deficit. That explains that swing of $700,000. And unfortunately, we are not banking on the state legislature and governor to increase our funding. I hope they do. They have that opportunity, but it's not something that I want to bank on moving forward. Here's some information about the question number 2, the facility study. So this is a picture from the high school, middle school library. This was taken in March of last year, March 3rd, 2022. You can see there's a group of volunteers that showed up to study all the different possibilities that the community might want for improved athletic and outdoor facilities. Right here are some meeting notes. Let's see if they pop up here. There we go. Okay. So here are meeting notes from the very first meeting in January of 2022. You can see the attendees. We had people from the community, people on the staff. We started off by identifying themes. What are people interested in seeing for their outdoor athletic facilities and community spaces? And the youth facilities became a prominent theme. Baseball and softball facilities were talked about. Track and football facilities, you can see the different comments that were made by the different groups. People in that group said, come up with a comprehensive plan. Don't just come up with putting a field here and then later discovering that maybe that field wasn't in the right spot. So they said, be comprehensive about it. Outdoor classrooms was talked about. How are we going to pay for it was something that was discussed. And then the location of all these types of things. And then they also had some questions. So this was the starting point back in January of 2022. We met monthly, and by March, the board had contracted with Point of Beginning and brought them on board. That's Scott and Lindsay, who I introduced at the beginning of the meeting. In fact, this is a picture of Scott down this corner, and here's Lindsay, and they are helping host a meeting. There were no assumptions with the committee. The committee had chances to look at both the downtown and campus facilities and look at, for instance, where could a track fit? Where could a football field fit if that was a priority? Baseball fields. And they had scale models and overhead maps, and the group really talked about where could things fit and what are the priorities. And as you know, the phase 1 track football complex is the one phase that the community said they'd support at this point of the 20-year plan. So it's a little background information. Again, any questions that you might have, you can certainly reach out through info@springvalley.k12.wi.us. And we also have our website here to get more information. So, having said that, I will now turn it over to questions. We may not have any. We're going to find out here in just a second. And we'll do our best to answer those tonight. All right, thank you, Jenny. All right, so we have 2 questions. Just one question. Okay, I'm going to take a minute to read this. All right, the question we have here, it says, coming from a larger school district, I've been drawn to the small town charm and neighborhood feel of this for the school district. For question 2, I'm concerned we will lose that charm because we will become just another keeping up with the Joneses like the Hudson School District did. How do we know how do we know that we need that large of an athletic facility for a small school district? Thanks. So I have heard that similar sentiments as I've been going around to different meetings. As far as the facility itself, it really, obviously a football field is universal size and so is a track. I think the one thing I'd heard through this facility study was that a track, way beyond a football field, but a track was something the community was really looking for, and that community group was looking for that studied it. I think the last time we had a competition track in town was like 1982 or 1983. And right now our students, they run around the parking lot, they run on the roads, they run on the trails around town. And we have a pretty good track team. So because the track is the size that it is, that really dominates the space, and obviously inside football fields would fit inside. There was discussions in that group talking about, do we need to put a football field on the inside of a track? Can we just build a track, for instance, up here on campus? And point of beginning, Scott and Lindsay really pointed out that you could, but you're probably going to put grass seed in it. And if you're going to put grass seed, you're going to have the drainage. So you need to slope the dirt properly. And so basically you're building a grass area football field. It could be a practice field, absolutely. But the group that studied it felt like if you're going that far, thinking out into the future, now is the time to invest in that type of facility. As far as the location, because I know that's part of the charm I've heard from different people. The downtown site is very unique, and I think a lot of people really, really enjoy that aspect of it. The community that studied it looked at putting that track and football facility downtown, and it would fit, but a baseball field would not fit downtown as well. And so that really, I think, got a lot of wheels turning with the community study group. And they just basically decided that if we're going to do both a track and football or baseball field, they're not going to fit downtown. So getting it up on the campus where students can use it on a daily basis was a priority. I can't answer the keeping up with the Joneses part, other than when school districts do look at redoing or remodeling or upgrading their outdoor athletic facilities, they typically go to a turf type field 9 out of 10 times, according to point of beginning. And that's something that they find value in. And again, that space would be used a lot for many, many things beyond football or track. It'd be used for students, community, etc. So that one more questions coming in. Okay, we'll be getting that in just a second. Keep the questions coming, by the way. And again, we're recording this, and we'll put this on our website so you can see it later. Thank you. Good question. It says parking seems to be crowded at the school during events. Is there a plan to address additional parking for multiple events? And right now, I would say honestly, the answer is no. There are, I would say, 4 to 6 days a year where our parking, I wish it was bigger. Those are days like Grandparents' Day, concerts. Sometimes you have something going on at both the high school. After hours, sometimes it gets quite full. One area that isn't used much, we do have a little bit of parking on the east side of the school, back as you travel back to the elementary playground. It would get used on a very busy night. We did look at the parking spaces, for instance, on a football night. And right now, frankly, I don't know how all the cars fit downtown. Somehow they squish into the streets at the north end of town by the dam. But looking at the parking we have available, and we have 2 exits, we felt like the parking would be adequate for that type of an event. Will there be a couple nights or a couple days a year where it's not enough? Absolutely. And it comes to that fine balance of, do you spend a lot of money for a few days a year, or do you deal with the consequences of being crowded on a few days a year, knowing that you're saving a lot of money in investment in parking lots? So That's the best answer I can give to that one. Any other questions? None at this time. I'm going to give it just another 30 seconds or a minute. Again, I appreciate the questions. If you have any other things that come up after this meeting, from now until the referendum or after the referendum, please reach out to me. I'd be glad to help and answer them. If you need more information, I can send you materials. I can meet you somewhere if that's more helpful, so you can point things out. But glad to help out and glad to answer. And again, kind of as we close tonight, the goal is to get as many people to vote as possible. If referendum question number 1 for operating facilities does not pass, that's a good message from the community that we need to tighten things up. If it fails by a lot, to me that says we need to cut back on things we're doing. If it passes closely, again, affirmation that we need to keep going the direction we're going. If it passes by a healthy margin, again, that's really good feedback for us. So a higher turnout is going to make more impact. And about the athletic facility, same thing. I think at the end of the day, not everybody's going to be happy no matter how the vote turns out. So as long as it's a high turnout, I think people accept those results a little bit better. Is now the time for these plans? Is now the time for that plan? You guys will get to decide on April 4th. And again, I thank you for your time. I don't see any other questions. So we're going to stop the meeting this time. We have one more? We have one more. Hang tight. Okay. All right, next question. Is there any chance that funding for sports complex could come through sponsorship or fundraising? That's an awesome question. And that is something that Point of Beginning, actually, the design team is really familiar with. Other communities have done it. Durand did a similar project a few years ago. What they ended up calling Bauer Built Complex. They had a large sponsorship from Bauer Built Tire in Durand. We did consider that. Due to the timing of the referendum, there wasn't a lot of time to do the fundraising effort. So I did talk to Point of Beginning because they have a lot of experience in this area. And they said, if this referendum were to pass, having a group of interested people, and there are quite a few on the facility study group already, start a fundraising campaign to either offset costs for this project or to start projects and get kind of kickstarted on the next phase of projects while the construction costs are cheaper, basically in 2023 and 2024, that would be very wise. So we are going to try to reduce costs or get things jump-started for the next phase to offset so the taxpayers don't realize the full expense. Another quick thing on the cost of that project. Right now we're estimating the interest rate to be about 5.25%. Interest rates are about a full point lower than that right now, but we're conservatively estimating in the event that the interest rates will go up in the next few weeks when we start to secure financing. So we're hoping the cost is going to be a little bit lower that way. Point of Beginning is also built in some contingency and inflation expenses. So we've got a little bit of wiggle room that way. And hopefully if that money isn't spent, it goes right back and pays down the debt. The elementary school I'm standing in, there was about $2 million of money that was not used because we did everything we needed to do. That money went right back to pay down the debt, and we'd hope the same thing would happen for a project like this. So, any other questions? Jenny's shaking her head no. All right. So Jenny, thank you so much. Everybody that joined the meeting tonight, our teammates at Baird and Point of Beginning and our district office staff, and of course Jenny, I want to thank you guys. And thanks for supporting the Cardinals, and I look forward to getting those results. Election results next Tuesday night. Please vote. Thank you.